All right, guys, I'm going to make some short little videos throughout the weeks about computer science, and we're going to kind of move forward with Java, basically. You do not need to have Greenfoot or any other IDE. If you can, I'm going to talk about that. It might help. I'm going to have some optional stuff, but everything that is mandated or mandatory to do or will be graded, I guess, will be you just need to watch the videos and be able to answer some questions and submit the questions. So you won't need to necessarily download Greenfoot or anything like that. I'll show it, but you don't need it. So the first topic we're going to discuss are variables. You guys should know that variables are for storing of information. So if we need to store information, we need to make a variable. So in Scratch, we're able to make variables very easily. Like make a variable and we can say score, and we can set that equal to whatever we want. I already had a variable called score, but there's a variable called score, and I can set it equal to 5 or 0 or whatever. A lot of our variables that we made in Scratch were numbers, and that'll be the case moving forward. But we can also hold different things like words or true or false values or things like that. So the first thing is in Java, there are 4 that we're going to discuss right now. These are called the primitive data types, but you don't need to know that. So we have 4. They're called int for integer values, so 5, 0, -123, and so on. Integers are numbers that don't have decimals. So that's basically what we're looking at there. If you do want a decimal, you have to actually use what's called a double. 5.5, 2.1, so on and so forth. Then there's what we call booleans. They're true or false, and that's it, just true or false. And then words, they're called strings. So hello, everyone, so on and so forth. Okay. So to jump back, if you want to make a variable, so if I jump to Greenfoot, okay, just to show you, and I have this class here, so we don't need to know any of this, but I can come in here and say int score, okay, and there's me making a variable. All right. Now we're going to talk about, in the next slide, we're going to talk about what's called declaring and then initializing. So if you look at this slide here, this is how you declare a variable, and you only do this once. So you put int score, or double average, or Boolean reward, or string words. So that is you declaring a variable. Okay. Then you always have to put the type of the variable first, followed by the variable name. Okay, and that is how you declare a variable. Right? So if I wanted to, in Greenfoot, I can, just to show you, I can come here and say int score. And all that is called declaring a variable. Okay? Once you declare a variable, you have to at least initialize it at some point. So this is what is called initializing. You are setting that variable equal to something. So, score equals 100, average equals 2.5, reward equals true, words equals hello. So remember, we had int holds integers, double holds decimals, Boolean holds true or false, and string holds words. Words are always in quotes. Okay, so whenever you're using words, they'll always be in quotes, and we'll call those strings from now on. So I can come here and go back to Greenfoot for a second. I can say int score equals 0. Okay, and that works. Right? That is me declaring, and that is me initializing. And you don't have to initialize right after. Typically you do, but you don't have to. You can initialize later on if you wanted to. Now, a lot of times you do that in one step. So if you take a look, we combine those two into one line. So like int score, there's the declaring, and then here's me also initializing. So make sure you know that there's 2 parts: declaring a variable, which you only do once, and then initializing a variable, which is setting it equal to something. And you can initialize, you can keep changing it as you want. Initializing to start, and then you can change it. So I can do, you're going to see in the next slide of how I do that, of what really happens. Okay, so once again, Greenfoot, there's me initializing, there's me declaring, initializing, and then I can put that into one statement if I wanted to. Okay. Now, just to understand this, we're going to jump to the last slide of what is really happening and why we need this like ints, doubles, booleans, and so on. So on your computer, you have memory. And you can think of a memory as a bunch of empty cups. Okay? And we call this cup, the first cup actually starts at 0. So this is cup 0, cup 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. In fact, you have millions and millions of empty cups, so to say, in your memory. Okay? So, and this is your computer screen. So you can see right now, if I start coding, I see nothing. So if I type int score, and I'm declaring a variable called score that holds an int, this really is just taking a cup and labeling it with score. You can see there's nothing in this cup still. It's just labeled with score. Okay? Then, once I do score equals 100, that actually takes 100 and puts it into the cup. So now I have initialized score. Okay? Once again, you don't see anything on the computer screen. You're just storing it in memory. You're not displaying it or outputting it. And then finally, here I changed score actually to 98. So you can see that score got changed to 98. And then in Java, if I want to see something on the screen, a simple way to do output, and there's lots of ways to do output, but a simple way is this system.out.println. So if I print out, you can just think of it as printing out, and I put score here. So now you will actually see 98 show up on your computer screen. Okay? And that is how the computer memory works. And why we use int here, because matter of fact, you actually have to tell the computer how many cups you need. In fact, an integer actually is a pretty big number. It can hold pretty big numbers. So integer actually takes up 32 bits. Double takes up 64 bits. So it actually takes up, an int score would actually take up 32 cups. I just have it taking up 1 just to visualize that. But a double would take up 64 cups because it's 64 bits. A Boolean only takes 1 because it's either true or false. So that's kind of interesting. And then so on, and you don't need to know that portion of it. All right. So that is kind of what I wanted to discuss about variables. So a couple key concepts you need to know. If I jump back real quick, you do need to know the 4 kinds of variables in Java. So int, double, Boolean, string. You need to know the difference between declaring a variable and initializing a variable or setting it equal. Okay? So make sure you know those 2 parts. If you know those 2 parts for this little lesson, you should be good. I'm not going to ask a ton of things on memory. The last thing I just want to talk about is your variable names. I'm pretty lenient on this, but of how you name them. I don't like X, Y, and Z. I like them like int score. They should say something. Also, notice my variables start with a lowercase. So score, average, reward. Never start them with an uppercase, okay? Because that represents something else in computer programming. So variables are always lowercase, all right? If you have 2 words, you should do this. So if I wanted to make like is raining or something like that. To me, that's a Boolean. It's either raining or not. So I would start with the lowercase is, and instead of doing this, because that's kind of hard to see, you can use capital letters for the next word. So is raining, and we'll set it equal to true. So if you want more than 1 word, always start with a lowercase and then make the next word capital. All right. I have seen people, you can do this. You can put an underscore there. That will work. You cannot put a space. It basically will give an error when you try and compile. It won't know what that is. So that'll be a problem there. So I like to do like something like that. All right. So that's just a quick tip on variable names. All right. With that, that's the end of lesson 1. All right. So you should be able to complete a variable worksheet that I have after this. All right. Thanks, guys.